Hi everyone, I am Kirsten McInnes. Before I even jump into does any of this sound familiar, I just want to make a comment about what today is. So today is June 21st, and some of you may or may not know, but today is solstice. And so solstice is our day of equal light and darkness. It's about new beginnings, and it's about balance, which I thought was pretty interesting, that this happened to be scheduled on a day of balance, of the balance between light and dark. And it's also about the being and doing of life. That's the balance in life, the being and doing, and the yin and the yang. So it's kind of funny, unique, that we're doing this on solstice. So just wanted to point that out before we jump into all of this. So some of you may be here today because all of these things do sound familiar. Are you dragging yourself to work? Are you fantasizing about extended vacations that require you to sell all your possessions and travel around the world? Are you numbing out with food, drugs, or alcohol? Are you experiencing unexplained headaches, backaches, or other physical complaints? Have you gained or lost weight? Do you have trouble breathing? Are you working late, working all the time, checking emails well into the evening? Are you scared of taking time off, asking for a raise, taking a sick day, for fear of some what if on the other side? And when someone asks you what you do, can you only think or talk about work? So I wanted to just have that little starter for us. So this is a little bit about our journey today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, and then we're going to go into burnout awareness, the workplace crisis solutions, and we'll go from there. So I am an intuitive career and transition coach. I'm a writer and a teacher. I have worked over 20 years in corporate marketing, doing events, promotions, and communications. I spent the majority of my career at Microsoft, where I was part of Xbox and Xbox 360. I left Microsoft in 2006 and continued to consult and work with Microsoft. And it was in 2011 that I really felt this desire to help others and pursued coaching and began my practice. So I take all of my years of corporate experience and I share that and use it in my coaching practice. So I work with companies and I work with individuals, and I work to inspire and create an environment of corporate and personal wellness. I'm a graduate of Gonzaga University, and I am a graduate of the Coach for Life program. So my burnout story. I thought it would help to share this with all of you because I want you to know that that I get it. I have been there. And I'll just do it very quickly because I think our time is going to go fast. But back when I was working at Microsoft, I had a very cool job. And like I said, I worked for Xbox, and I had extreme highs and lows during my time. I would fly off to London, do something cool, and then I would come home, and then I flew off to Barbados, where I spent the weekend with Rihanna. And on paper, that sounded really amazing and really fun and really cool. But in reality, I was incredibly exhausted. I had no life outside of work. I would come home from these trips and do nothing because I had no energy to have a life outside of all of that. And I was very caught up in this world of the highs and the lows and the ups and the downs. And it was during that time where I realized I had to make a change. So I wanted to share that I get it, and I've been there. So additionally, I want to share that I'm not here to tell you that there's a perfect way of being. There's no absolute, that this is a dance. I don't want anyone to feel badly today about where they're at. if you're fried, if you're burnt out, if you're continuing to make choices that are adding to that and feeding that, it's okay. It's just about awareness, and this is a starting point. So I want to make sure that no one is walking away from this feeling that they're not doing something right, either it's not perfect. This is just a place to start, and this is a moment in time, and this is about noticing where you're at in your life and figuring out what you can do differently. So I'm sure many of you are aware that there's a workplace crisis going on, that most people are experiencing burnout. So I have a few statistics here on the screen, which if you're experiencing this and you're feeling this, this is of no surprise to you. That the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health said 26% of workers were often or very burnt out or stressed by their work. The American Psychological Association reported that 1/3 of Americans feel they are living with extreme stress, and 48% feel their stress has increased over the last 5 years. And compounding the problem is no one talks about it. So the Modern Family Index said 68% of working parents won't speak up about being burnt out. And lastly, 53% of Americans are burnt out and overworked, as stated in a survey by Staples Advantage. And I share those to validate that what you're feeling is real. You aren't alone. And I really, really, really love this third bullet here, because I think it's really important that we talk about it. And I like to talk about most everything. I don't like to sweep things under the carpet. But I also believe that as we talk about things, we start to heal it and fix it. So let's talk about it. I want to talk, too, about how it takes its toll on your body. As we have stress, our physical health declines, we have psychological strain and decreased motivation, and it goes around. I'm going to go back to that slide real quick. We've got an advancing situation happening here. Stress lives in our bodies. So as we take on this stress, it lives in our bodies, and it is compounded when we continue in this cycle and when we don't do anything about the stress that we're experiencing each day. And I wanted to share just a little bit about, in Chinese medicine, how they refer to it in Chinese medicine, how this can show up in your body. So in Chinese medicine, all organs have a complementary emotion. So, for example, your kidneys. In your kidneys, the emotion is about fear and irritation. So if you are in a place of fear, the physical symptoms that are going to start showing up for you are loss of energy, adrenal fatigue, dark circles under your eyes. If you are feeling sad and depressed and anxious, this shows up in your lungs. Physical symptoms show up as breathing problems like a cough or bronchitis or asthma. And I also wanted to share a little bit about some of those emotions that some of you may have. I know I've had. Depression is when we are stuck in the past, looking to anything in our past. Anxiety is when we're looking too far into the future. So all of our emotions have layers, and they're all connected to organs in our body, and they manifest as physical symptoms. So hopefully that makes sense. And I'm just touching on it. I'm not a Chinese medicine doctor or an acupuncturist or any of those things, but I wanted to share that because of how stress impacts us physically. Okay, so what can you do about it? The first thing is about boundaries. And I'm going to share a lovely quote from Brené Brown. So daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves even when we risk disappointing others. And Paris and I were just talking about boundaries a little bit ago, and I want to share a little bit about our conversation. But before I do, I want to talk about the importance of boundaries. They're one of my favorite things to talk about. Boundaries are a commitment to yourself. And as soon as you decide that you want things to be different in your life, you're making a commitment to yourself. The boundary is the action around that commitment, right? So first you have to decide what's important for you. And then you have to take a baby step and set a boundary around that item. So what we were talking about a little bit ago is all of the horrible news that most people are hearing today. It's overwhelming. It is everywhere. It is constant. And one of my boundaries is I can't watch the news. I can't even look at some of the Facebook posts because it's too much for me. I can't listen to audio of babies crying. It's too much for me. So my boundary is I know what's going on. I'm very aware. I have my own personal decisions I'm going to do to take action, but I can't listen to the news. I can't watch the news. I can't keep looking at this feed because it will only make it harder for me and make me emotionally drained. So that's an example of a boundary I've set for myself around something that's going on in the news. A boundary that I have set in my own life is, as I explained, I worked in corporate America for a long time. When I left corporate America and I started doing consulting work, I decided I want to take Fridays off. Like, who doesn't want to take Fridays off? This is an amazing idea. So I decided I was going to take Fridays off. And the first client I had, this is another thing about boundaries. As soon as you decide what your boundary is, someone will test it. So as soon as I decided I was taking Fridays off, my client tested it. And they said, well, we really need you for a meeting. And I said, well, I'm not available on Fridays. Can we do it on Monday? And I offered it a solution that would take care of what we need to take care of and stuck firm to my boundary. And the thing about boundary setting and people testing it is it's actually a really good way for you to decide how important that boundary is. If you're going to set a boundary and then let someone push it and not hold firm, then I guess it wasn't that important of a boundary. And that's information for you. So you just take it in, you go, okay, well, I guess that wasn't very important to me. Or was it? And figure that piece out for yourself. It's not about beating yourself up. Oh my gosh, I said I was going to work out on Wednesday nights and here I am at work still. It's not about beating yourself up. It's about, okay, why did I do that? Oh, I had a deadline. Okay, I had a deadline. Well, I can give myself a break. Or, oh, I just didn't leave because I'm in a pattern of not leaving. Okay, well, I can change that. That can be changed. So it's about being really, really kind to yourself, figuring out what is important to you and setting a boundary. And so on that note, I'm going to go to number 2, self-care. So self-care is about being really kind to yourself. I love this quote. Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. And go back up to that and keep that there. So boundaries are a great way to take care of yourself. This is about being kind to yourself. They go hand in hand. But it goes beyond just the boundary setting. It's how are you nourishing yourself. So, this funny little quote from Anne Lamott about unplugging yourself. Your version of self-care could be literally turning off technology, turning your phone off, unplugging, and having quiet time. That could be your version. Your version might be going to a concert, kind of the opposite of unplugging in the technical sense, but maybe that is a creative outlet that feeds you and makes you excited and sparks your creative juices and gets you so excited about life being in that kind of energy. Everyone's different. Everyone's self-care is different. So it's about figuring out What is your version of self-care? What nourishes you? What nourishes you physically? What nourishes you spiritually? What nourishes you mentally? Are you eating foods that do that? Are you supporting your health? Are you going to the gym? Are you doing something? Are you going to yoga? Are you gardening? Figuring out what nourishment looks like for you and making that a part of your, I want to say day, but sometimes it's something that happens once a week. Again, this is about being really, really kind to yourself. I also want to say there's so many quotes around this idea of self-care, and I'm sure many people have heard them, like you can't pour from an empty vessel, put your own oxygen mask on before helping others. This is what this is about. You can't do a good job at work, with your people in your life, taking care of your body, if you're not taking care of yourself. So that's what this is about, starting with you and taking care of yourself and being kind. One thing I like to always say to people when I'm coaching someone and they're in a place where they're having a hard time figuring out how to take care of themselves or what they can do for themselves, and they're stuck in a place of just being fried, I say, if you were seeing your best friend or your daughter or your significant other or your son in the place that you're at, if you saw them in your shoes, what would you tell them? What would you tell that person you love to do to get out of the spot that you're in currently? And it's a great way to just get out of your own way and go, okay, I get it. How can I take care of myself? Okay. So the third one is saying no. This is a fun one. I say that because some people are like, I can't say no to my boss, or I can't say no to whoever, but there's a few quotes I wanted to share. It's only by saying no that you can concentrate on the things that are really important. So that was a quote from Steve Jobs. You can be a good person with a kind heart and still say no. When you say yes to others, make sure you're not saying no to yourself. I think for a lot of us that have a hard time saying no, and I'm going to say in the past because we're all going to work on this moving forward, but that saying, a lot of people feel like they can't say no. They feel like it's not an option, that saying no is mean, or saying no is going to get you in trouble. And we're going to talk about the getting in trouble part next. That's the fear. But saying no, I really like Steve Jobs. It really tells you what's important. As soon as you say no to something, it becomes very clear. That's not as important to me as what I want to say yes to. So as you set boundaries and take care of yourself, you will start to see, what do I want? What do I need? And when this year ends, where do I want to be in my life? So this is all about personal goals. And if this is something, we haven't really talked about personal goals yet, and it's not something I'm really going to touch on a lot in this presentation, but knowing what your goals are for yourself will help you with setting the boundaries. For example, this is all pretty straightforward stuff, but for example, if you are completely maxed out in life and you feel like you have no time and you're working late, but you really want to start taking care of your health, well, that's your goal. What is the boundary that's going to help you do that? Maybe leaving work at a certain time. If you can leave work at a certain time, that's going to help with the stress level. So maybe it's not about like adding something else, like going to the gym, but it's leaving work at time so I can start working on de-stressing. And what does that look like? So I also want to just go back to when you say yes to others, make sure you're not saying no to yourself. So where are you saying yes to you in your life? And I really, again, want to just point out that this isn't selfish. This is essential to having energy and joy in your life. Okay, fear. I have a lot to say about fear. So pages and pages to say about fear. I love this quote. And everything you want is on the other side of fear. When you're in a place of fear, you actually don't believe this. You really don't believe that everything you want is on the other side. You're just stuck in fear. Fear drives most people. You have fear of not enough money, fear of losing a job, fear of holding on to a job. On the other side of fear is love. I did a whole workshop on going from fear to love. When you are in a place of fear, even saying that on the other side of fear is love, or how to go from fear to love, you're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't know how to do that. I am so in a place of fear. You have to focus on gratitude to move past the fear. So if you are in a place of, trying to think of a good example, if I leave work early, I'm going to lose my job. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the fear that comes up if you think about leaving work early, or if you think about just leaving work at a normal time. If I do that, I will lose my job. That's the fear. So instead, we want to focus on, I am so thankful that I have a job. I'm so thankful I have a job. I have a job. I have a consistent paycheck. I am so thankful for my consistent paycheck. Whatever the items are for you that will get you out of the, oh my God, if I leave early, I'm going to lose my job, get you out of that panicky place to a calm place. I have a job. I have a job. I have consistent paychecks. I have a safe place I get to work. Whatever those pieces of gratitude are, you have to focus on that. I have another great quote that I want to share. It's, fear and love can never be experienced at the same time. It is always our choice as to which of these emotions we want. And this is from Gerald Jampolsky. Hopefully I'm saying that right. He is a MD who specializes in letting go of fear and going to the love. So the opposite of fear is love. So you have to work through that fear to get to the place of love. So how do you do that? So being in a place of love requires trust, belief, and faith. And you have to give up the old stories. So it requires you to sing a new tune, walk a new talk every single day. And this goes back to our number one thing. It requires you to set a boundary in your mind. So every time those fearful thoughts come up, and I do it every day, I have a fearful thought that comes up and I go, nope, I'm not doing that. All is well in my world. Whatever my gratitude is, I have a lovely home. I am thankful for my home. I'm thankful for the people in my life that love me. Whatever the fear is, you have to say, nope. I have a meme that I used to share that said, punch fear in the face. So this is how you punch fear in the face, is by saying, no, I'm not doing that. That is my boundary, is that I am going to focus on what's going well in my world. So I'm going to focus on the things I'm thankful for. And it is a process. This is a everyday thing. Some days are easier than others. Some days are hard. But we have to work on that boundary with fear and stay in a place of love and gratitude. Focus on what's going well. So the other thing you can do is turn things around, and you ask what if questions. So when you have that fearful thing come up, instead of letting that fear churn and fret and scare, say, what if it all turned out great? And as soon as, I can feel it actually on me, as soon as you ask a what if question, it changes the vibration of that energy that you're in. So fear, everyone has felt fearful, has felt the pain that comes along with fear. It's painful, it's heavy, it just makes me kind of nauseous. It's a horrible feeling to be in that place of fear. As soon as you change it and go, what if it all turns out great? My skin tingles, I feel better. It's like, oh my gosh, it changes the vibration. So when you feel that scared, that frustration, that anxiety, all those things, ask yourself a what if question. Like maybe you're looking for a new job, or maybe you're looking to buy a home, and you ask yourself the question, what if it all turns out great? What if I get the job? Oh my God, what if I get the job? Oh my gosh, that brings in a whole new fear. I can feel all those feelings that come with that. It brings a whole level of excitement, and then a little bit of scared because, oh my gosh, am I going to do a good job? Da da da. But all those things are at a different vibration than fear. It's so much higher. It feels so much better. Your energy's peaked. It's not heavy. So that what if question is a great thing to ask yourself to get yourself out of that place of fear. So I know that all of this can feel lofty at times, and especially if you're in a really hard place with something. I know, I get it. I've been in the hard places, and I know my reaction is when I'm in a really hard place, I want to have a temper tantrum. And I want to be a 2-year-old. I want to stomp my feet. I want to say, this sucks. This isn't fair. I'm over it. And you know what? Say all those things. Do all that stuff. Get it out of your system. I am a big believer in not squishing down emotions. I say let it out. Do what you need to do. Maybe you need to hit a pillow. Maybe you need to go for a run. Whatever your thing is, get it out. My friends used to call me tragic because when I was in that kind of a mood, I would want to watch Beaches and Terms of Endearment and all of these movies that would make me sob. And I'm like, yeah. So I would sob, get it out of my system. I'm like, okay, now I feel pretty good. So figure out what your thing is, but don't push it down. That's a huge thing. Don't push it down, because if you do, it's going to manifest as some kind of disease in your body. It's going to make you feel worse. It's not going to solve anything. So ask yourself what if questions, focus on the gratitude, and and keep working on that every day. I have a couple of little things I wanted to share too, but as all of this has happened, and I didn't really ask the questions at the beginning, I don't know where everybody is at today. I don't know what people are working on, where they're at in their life, what they're trying to work through. But one of the questions that I would ask each of you to think about for yourself is, what do I want to have happen in my life? And I would just start small. We don't need to get big and huge with this long list, but pick one thing. What do I want to have happen? And what am I going to do about it? Am I going to set a boundary? Am I going to set a goal for myself? And what steps am I going to take around that? And I'll say one more thing about fear and what you can do around it. But there is a lovely, lovely woman named Byron Katie. And if you don't know about Byron Katie, I would recommend you look up her book. It's called The Work. And in The Work, she asks 4 questions. And the 4 questions are, when you have something that comes up, a belief that you have come up in your life, like I'm never going to get that job, I'm not good enough, something like that, some stupid belief like that is some yucky thing inside you saying that. That's not true. The Work has 4 questions. The first is it true? Can you absolutely know that it's true? How do you react? What happens? What do you believe? How do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? And the 4th question, who would you be without that thought? So I recommend you look at her book, The Work, and read through it and do those exercises on the beliefs and the fears that you have. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and go to the Q&A, and we're gonna open the little chat and see what questions everyone might have. I would love to know maybe what brought you to this webinar today. I'm assuming you're burnt out. I'm assuming that you've kind of been churning on stuff for a while, that you're not really sure what to do to get out of this cycle. But you tell me. I would love to know more about who is participating today and what you're working on. Okay. Yeah, okay. So I feel like so many people are experiencing this too. This is more work to do than one person can physically accomplish during normal work hours. The company has you working 60 to 80 hours a week and assign projects accordingly. What boundary would you set in this case, or how would you set a boundary? This is hard. And my assumption is that you don't want to be working 60 to 80 hours a week. You would like to have a life. Thank you for that answer. My first thing would be obviously to talk with your direct manager. I'm guessing you probably have, and I'm guessing that this is the norm for probably most people in the company. I'm going to say one thing before I go into this further. I had someone else say to me one time, they were working at a company, it didn't work, it was, this, that, and the other thing was going on there, so they left the company and they went to another company, and they experienced all the same kind of burnout and issues in their life at the next company they went to. And this is going to sound harsh, but it's just meant to be direct. I said to them, what's the common denominator? They were the common denominator. So I think there is a problem in companies where they are expecting people to work more than the normal 40-hour work week that is of days gone by. So a lot of companies are expecting people to work a lot more, thinking you have access to email all the time, that you should be available 24/7. You are responsible for your boundary. So if you do not want to do that, if you do not want to be working 80 hours a week, I would decide what your capacity is. If your capacity is I can do 60 hours, what does that look like for you? And I would set the boundary for yourself, and then I would also go to your manager and say, hey, I want you to know I'm doing great on my projects. They're in this place and that place, and here's where I'm at, and I can give you weekly progress reports. I will be offline on Monday, every night after 7 p.m. or whatever the boundary is for you. You're going to have to set your boundary. You're going to have to enforce it. They may or may not like it, but you are responsible for your health and well-being. If you are to, God forbid, get horribly ill because you are working 80 hours a week, this is going to sound harsh. I'm very blunt. They will not care. They will not care if you are sick and in the hospital. They'll be like, ooh, it's kind of inconvenient because I really need to do your job. But they are not going to care that you're sick. I feel like it's so mean, but it's so true. So you are responsible for your health and well-being. They are not. You have to decide what you can do, and start small. If you're worried about a boundary being too big and you're getting into that fear a little bit, set a small one. Maybe you decide Tuesday, Thursday nights, I am offline after 7, and you don't have to make up any excuses or any reasons why you are doing this. You can just go to your manager and say, hey, my projects are doing great. I'm in a great place. Here's where they're at. Wanted you to know I will be offline Tuesday and Thursdays after 7 o'clock, I'm not going to be able to get back to you until the next morning. I guarantee, unless you are a doctor that is telling me this, no one will die. So if you are a doctor working 80 hours, that doesn't apply to you. Someone may die. But I'm guessing you're not a doctor, and no one is going to die if you don't work after 7 o'clock, except for maybe you. So very direct, very harsh, but it's the truth. So decide what your boundary is. You have to, I shouldn't even say this in the presentation, but once you decide your boundary, you have to actually share it with people. You actually have to communicate your boundary with others. This helps make you accountable. It ensures that they know, and so that if they want to try to overstep it, you will have to reiterate what your boundary is, and that helps you reinforce it for yourself. So hopefully that helped, and hopefully that answered a question. I have worked with a lot of people that work long hours, long days, don't leave the office until 10 o'clock at night. And I always recommend start small. If it's one night a week that you leave at 5, it's one night a week more than you had before. So pick something and start small, decide the boundary, communicate it, and then do it. And you will get tested. So hopefully that helps. I would love to know if you set a boundary and what you set and how it goes for you. So if you feel like sharing it back after you've done it, that would be great to hear. Anyone else have any questions? Oh, no. Well, so I would love to know more about that. If you want to share with me about your boundary and how you got let go, maybe it was a blessing in disguise. Maybe it was a blessing in disguise, which is hard to see sometimes, but yeah. So I would love to know more about how that boundary setting went with you, and on what level they let you go. Any other questions? Any other stories people want to share about what brought them here today? All right. Well, if there's no more questions, great. Thank you, everyone.